The Daddy Letters. Letter 4. Wise Dating Habits.
Dear daughters, in this letter I will speak primarily to my unmarried daughters, but my married daughters will benefit as well. We cannot control the evolution of secular culture. It will continue to follow its own carnal inclinations and worship its own gods. It will continue to use a little truth as bait to hide the bare metal barb of lies designed to hook you and drag you into its unhealthy lifestyles. It is undeniable that a lot of good has come out of our secular cultural evolution. Women should not be treated like property, should receive the same pay for equal work, have the same voting rights as men, have the same opportunities for education as men, be allowed a broader array of career opportunities than in the past, and be encouraged to prepare themselves to care for themselves financially so they can survive if they remain single, widowed, or divorced. These good and wholesome truths are used as bait to make you also accept their perversion of family life where men are not honored as heads of the household, marriage is disposable when it no longer thrills you, or not even necessary to have a family, having lots of sex before marriage is beneficial, and children should always take precedent over your mate. The best way to sell a lie has always been to mix it with truth. The secular culture also hides its lies about current dating practices beneath some enticing truths. Yes, it is true that giving couples a greater say in mate selection is a good thing, but it is false that the selection should be made primarily on the basis of sexual attraction. It is true that the automobile has improved the variety of social settings for dating, but false that automobiles should carry couples to the local lover's lane for premarital intimacy. It is true that cell phones, social media, and other technologies can serve a positive role in helping couples get to know one another, but it is false that immodest and seductive photos should be posted to stimulate each other's sexual desires, or that one should sacrifice the priorities of studies and work for the joy of communicating for hours. The culture tells you to follow your heart, but the Bible says, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately sick, who can understand it?" Jeremiah 17:9. The culture tells you to love the one who satisfies your desires, but the Bible warns us that desires are deceitful and can corrupt us. Ephesians 4:22-23. There was a time when virginity was held in high esteem, but today it is ridiculed, and proponents of chastity are socially drawn and quartered. There was a time when the celibacy of widows and widowers was praised, but today they are encouraged to solve their grief and loneliness with casual sex. There was a time when monogamy was considered the best path to true intimacy, but now polyamory is considered a good option for couples bored with each other. Peddlers of the new secular morality claim that all the old ways are based upon outdated social norms, but they fail to recognize that a good many of the old mores were based upon unchangeable divine principles. Further, they posit that men created the rules to give themselves dominance and advantage over women. It is true that since the beginning men have abused their God-given role in the home and society, but it does not change the fact that it is God-given. God created marriage, not men. God created man first, not woman. God ordained that the woman should be honored as the weaker of the genders and therefore loved, protected and led by the husband. He did not say that women deserve less pay in the workplace. That was man's creation, but he did say that women shall not be bishops or pastors in his church. Study your Bibles, daughters, don't just read them. So, daughters, I pray that you have made of yourselves good women who deserve good men, because the prerequisite to attracting a good man is to be a good woman, and a good woman is one who follows God's precepts, not the culture's. After you meet or marry a good man, the first step to having a good relationship with a man is to honor the gender role of men. It is too bad that this culture has set women at war against men. Don't fall for it. It is important for you to understand what each dating custom says about you. Is it okay for you to openly and aggressively pursue a man? Well, it depends upon how you want to be perceived by him and others. Sin is not at issue here, image is, and image is important. The Bible advises us to not carelessly behave in such a way that your good intentions are evil spoken of. Ask yourself if your behavior is letting the man be a man, because the more his natural male ego thrives, the more he will value you. You should want to be valued for being a woman of wholesome character and not your liberated feminism or sexual favors. You are free to dress however you want, but is your attire creating a stumbling block for your suitor, making it hard for him to control his sexual desire, and is he interpreting your attire as a come-on? It's simple. Adopt cultural norms that say something godly about you and reject those that don't. You probably ask, with all these restrictions to be modest, avoid being too forward, allowing men to be pursuers and so forth, how can I ever get the man of my interest to notice me? Dears, that's why God gave you an emotionally sensitive, tactful, and creative feminine brain. You simply apply your wits to work within the bounds of proper behavior yet find ways to make yourself and interest known. Great women have always done this even in the most restrictive societies. A great Bible story that illustrates this point is the courtship of Ruth and Boaz. Let me illustrate it for you. To set the stage, Ruth's husband died, and she followed her widowed mother-in-law, Naomi, to a foreign land. Boaz is a distant relative of Naomi, and according to custom he is in line for marital rights to the widow, Ruth. The two women, with great aplomb, attract Boaz's attention and finally encourage him to exercise his male role to initiate marriage. Verse 1 of Ruth 2 reads, "Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz." Notice the first step the women took was to identify the worthiness of the man, Boaz, not how much he made Ruth's heart palpitate or how cute he was. Verse 2, "And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor." In accordance with the customs of the day, Ruth sought a modest way to be noticed by Boaz. Verse 5, "Then Boaz said to his young man who was in charge of the reapers, Whose young woman is this?" According to Ruth's plan, Boaz notices her, and he is impressed with her industry and worthiness, so he decides to show Ruth kindness. He did not employ a pickup line or seductive entreaty, but showed her kindness, honor and respect. Verse 8, "Then Boaz said to Ruth, Now, listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you?" Boaz demonstrates his willingness and ability to protect Ruth and keep her safe from unscrupulous males. Isn't chivalry grand? Verse 10, "Then she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" Ruth shows appreciation but inquires as to Boaz's intentions for being so kind. A good thing for every woman to discover about the men they date, because men often use kindness as a hook for sexual, financial, or some other favors. Verse 11, "But Boaz answered her, All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord." Boaz affirms his respect for the kind of person Ruth is, not how she looks, smells, dresses, or flirts. He is impressed more by her fine character than her fine body. Verse 14, "And at mealtime Boaz said to her, Come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her roasted grain. And she ate until she was satisfied." Boaz invites Ruth to dinner, and afterwards continues to provide protection and kindness. In no way does he entreat her on the basis of physical desire. Verse 22, "And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest in another field you be assaulted." Naomi endorses Boaz because of the honorable way he was treating and protecting Ruth. Then, after weeks of enjoying Boaz's protection and kindness, Ruth accepts advice from her shrewd mother-in-law how to modestly signal to Boaz that she is open to moving the relationship to the next level. Naomi advises Ruth to make herself clean and presentable, not sexy, and go to where Boaz would be sleeping after the party he was having, and uncover his feet, presumably ensuring his chilly feet would awaken him, making him in the middle of the night so she could talk to him privately without rousing him from sleep by touch and risking seeming too forward. As planned, Boaz awakes startled, giving Ruth the opportunity to ask Boaz if he was willing to fulfill Jewish custom in taking her as a wife. He is flattered by her modest entreaty and thanks Ruth for preferring him as a man of integrity over the sexual virility of younger, more attractive and wealthy men. Next chapter, verse 10, "And he said, May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman." The next morning Boaz protects Ruth's reputation by sending her home before others notice her presence, and just in case she is seen he gives a load of barley so it would appear food supplies was the intent of her early visit. And then Boaz went to work to win the hand of Ruth according to Jewish law. After being successful he takes Ruth as his wife. Verse 13, "So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son." Our culture teaches men to go into her and perform acts of conception as a way to get to know each other, but that's a subject for another letter. Do you appreciate the wholesome romance and practicality of their courtship, fueled by character, kindness, virtue, decorum, mutual admiration and well-managed attraction? Wasn't Boaz's chivalrous behavior and protection romantic and reassuring, as was Ruth's expressions of respect? Did they not plant the seeds of a future deeper connection through earned mutual admiration? Did they not take time to really get to know one another and in so doing kindle a fire easily lit into a blaze after marriage? Nothing is more romantic than to be preferred, respected, favored, sought after, appreciated, protected, and honored for your good character, especially when these things come from a worthy suitor or husband. Yes, girls, today's dating customs are enticing because they appeal to the powerful natural hormonal triggers of our human nature, our primal urges. Unfortunately, they also selfishly seek the gratification of our carnal instincts in rebellion against our own design and God's will. I hope my married daughters did not fall into the cultural trap, and my unmarried daughters will not. Girls, don't forget how much your old dad loves hanging out with his grandbabies, especially while eating apple pie. Love. Dad.